Welcome to year 2 of A Mick, a Mook, and a Mike.
Hosted by 4-time Emmy-nominated producer
Frank Pace. And retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
This week's guest, director of Friends and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Shelley Jensen.
My brother Frankie, how you doing, pal?
Back for another week of this nonsense, huh?
Are you kidding? They're lining up to see this thing. Lining up.
I want to give you a statistic. We're in the top 20% of all podcasts that are downloaded every week. That's the good news.
Legit, really?
Legit. The bad news
is to show you people have lost their minds.
for sure they have. For sure they have. But don't. Are you going to die? You're going to be in front. You're going to die in front.
You gave me a heart attack. You told me people are listening to us. You gave me a heart attack.
Yeah, there are 2 million podcasts. We're in the top 20%.
Oh, I see.
Barely.
Yeah, but you know what? Considering our demographic, we're not exactly in our teenage years, Frank. I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
Wait a second.
Most of the people our age are dead, number one. And the second thing is, the majority of the people our age, already around our age, don't even know what a podcast is. They don't know how to download this shit. Do you? Don't lie to me. Do you?
Hey, before we get too far into this, our guest today is Shelley Jensen. Emmy Award winning director, directed Friends, directed
everybody.
Directed Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, directed Drew Carey, directed Suddenly Susan, directed Hot in Cleveland, directed Shake It Up with Zendaya. He's a great guy, and he'll be a good guest.
I was doing research, and I started listening.
You were doing what?
Research. And I started listening to all the things he directed. I got tired of writing. I swear to God. I said, this guy's always working. Amazing.
This guy was and is always working.
What did they used to do on a Saturday Night Live with the Rastafarians? You only had 4 jobs. You only had 3 jobs. This guy's amazing. He's working all the time.
Derek, what do we have to do with the Rastafarians?
It was on Saturday Night Live. It used to be a bit they used to do. You're lazy guy. You only got 6 jobs. You're lazy guy.
You lazy bum.
You're lazy bum. By the way, that's Derek Harris over there trying to get himself on camera. Just waiting for the last minute.
Hello, mateys. How are you? Is everything good this morning?
He's a handsome lad, though, isn't he?
He is a handsome lad.
I wonder
compared to you and me. I don't know on the scale of handsome lads wearing rings, probably in the 10% of 200 million, but but that's better than
no comment.
No comment.
Oh. So what what I saw in the news? I'm going to throw you a curve.
Wait. What did you see in the news?
I read it yesterday in the news.
Is it going to be relevant to the week this is on?
I guess so. It was at a rap concert in Houston. Did you see that? It's like 6 people got killed.
Yeah, my nieces were there.
They were there?
Yeah. One of them has bruised ribs.
It's amazing. Like all of a sudden the crowd just rushed the stage and crushed like 6 people to death.
I think it was 8. Wasn't it?
11 were rushed to the hospital. 6 died.
It was 8.
Yeah.
8 died?
Yeah.
And, so much for COVID.
Yeah, I mean, what? I mean, that's unbelievable. I mean, you go to a concert and everybody rushes the stage and crushes you.
But they've been crushing people for years. At soccer games, at baseball games, they've been crushing people for years. It's a respected way to pass away.
I got crushed at a rap concert.
Yeah.
That's a respectable way to die.
Sure. I got crushed at a soccer game. I got crushed at a concert. What the fuck?
Man, I was shocked. I thought it was a big deal. I mean, I never saw anything like that.
Nah.
Well,
Frank, I just want to say I appreciate the fact that you said a concert versus a rap concert. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That was in Houston, and I was looking.
Look at that. Bill went right over. It went right over. It went right over his head.
No, I heard. And I was going to carry on with that. And maybe I looked at it from a racist aspect because when it was a rap concert, I said, well, let me see what the crowd was. They were all white that I could see. 90% of them were coming out and they were white.
Yeah, well, white people are rap fans.
Yeah,
black people no longer are rap fans. They're
they like real rap.
Real rap.
No, Travis Scott is a big time rapper, so he does.
I thought Travis Scott was the guy who ran the concert.
No, he's the actual rapper.
He's the rapper?
Yeah.
Because they mentioned three names. So like it was Trito. Of course, I wouldn't. You know what? I mean, obviously, I'm not up to
Wait
date.
a second. Was Lil Nas X there? That's all I want to know.
No, Lil Nas wasn't there. But I obviously I'm not up to date. Did I tell you the story? One time I was watching a football game, and at the end of the football game, I was just too lazy. I was reading something, and I didn't switch the channels. And what came on was The Masked Singer.
Yeah.
Right? The show The Masked Singer.
Horseshit, but go ahead.
That's what came on. And I didn't change it because I was reading. And I looked up, and it was the end of the show, and the 5 guys come out and take their masks off. These are celebrities. They could have came out in the beginning without the mask and put their first name on it.
You would know.
And I still wouldn't have known who the hell they were.
That's the same thing I have with that dance show.
Dancing with the Stars?
Yeah, Dancing with the Stars. Now the stars are the celebrities.
They've run out of celebrities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they have. I guess the dancers are bigger celebrities than the actual celebrities are supposed to be.
The dancers. Are
Yeah.
yeah.
They've been bigger celebrities.
Wasn't Sean Spicer making a splash on that show?
Absolutely. But let me get back to Little Nas X. Because I'm all about Little.
For your rap fans out there,
I'm all about Little Nas X.
why?
Did you see his commercial with Elton John?
Yeah.
Oh, is that who that is? That's who that is. I don't know. I recognize Elton John. I don't know who the other guy was.
That is the greatest commercial.
How much money does Elton John need, by the way?
I don't know, but he's gonna. He at least he gives it all away. He used to put it up his nose. Now he gives it all away. He used to come from your party, the up your nose party.
The up your nose party. I got a very crude joke I can say right now, but should I say it?
That commercial is a hoot because they are just making fun of themselves. They're having fun, making money, making fun of themselves. Because Elton John is an iconic figure, and Little Nas is working toward being an iconic figure by pairing himself with Elton John in a commercial.
Well, yeah, you can't go wrong. I mean, if you're in a commercial with Elton John, but how much he actually gave? I think Rod Stewart for a Christmas present a Picasso or some shit like that. That's the kind of money he's got. Crazy money.
But he gives away an incredible amount of money to AIDS research and AIDS and all.
Oh, he does?
Oh, yeah. He does his annual Academy Awards party that all the proceeds go to AIDS research. He's a tremendous humanitarian. Humanitarian.
Well, I mean, it always cracks me up when I see myself. And I would give it, Frank, if I had it. I would give it. But it always cracks me up when I see these guys that got all, I mean, like how many rock stars do you see making commercials? I mean, they don't have to. I mean, I would think they got plenty of money, no?
Well, I saw Stevie Van Zandt on Bill Maher, and he has what's your name? The Billy O'Connor disease. He spent it as soon as he got it.
Mm.
Yeah, he was pushing his book. I saw that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Ma, Sean Spicer was on Ma last week. Did you happen to see that?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I never noticed it when he was behind the podium, but he looks like he putts from the rough. I mean, I never noticed it before, but I definitely noticed it when he was interviewing Ma.
It's easy to find out. All you have to do is Google it.
Do you putt from the rough?
But then if you Googled a certain celebrity from the 50s or 60s, who was putting from the rough.
Wait, is this common knowledge?
That's Sean Spicer?
Yeah.
Billy's.
This is just me and my gaydar. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's how good my gaydar is.
You could have kept it vague. It would have been nice.
Yeah, but I mean, come on. The guy was like, he was
okay. Yeah.
A little light in the heels. I don't know.
A little light in the heels.
But I don't care about that. I don't care what goes on behind closed doors, right? But why not say it? Why not? Why be one of these guys that does everything to hurt gays with legislation and everything else, and then be gay yourself? That I don't get. Those kind of people annoy me. Because I don't care what goes on behind. I don't care if you sit in the bathtub, lay farts, and bite the bubbles. It's none of my business. I don't care. Whatever gets you off is cool with me. But I don't understand why they pass legislation to hurt gays and meanwhile they gay themselves. I don't get that.
Yeah, I can't imagine how many members of Congress.
Oh, yeah! Without a doubt, especially the guys in Iowa or the Midwest. And how about that guy who got busted putting his feet underneath the other seat, in the men's room?
Men's room, yeah.
Yeah. He said it was an accident. His feet. You ever been in the Miami? How the hell could you have an accent like that? Oh, by the way, my foot just happened to slip under it. You know, what are you, kid? And that guy was from Minnesota or some shit. He was from real
I think he was from Minnesota.
Midwest, and he was like,
someplace like that.
and
Minnesota.
voted against gay rights across the board every time.
Well, that's his shield.
Yeah, that's a shit, of course.
All right, let's
And what kind of guys when we were kids used to beat up the gays?
you.
No, the guys who weren't too sure of themselves. Those are the guys that beat up gays. They not too sure of themselves.
You.
No, I always do. I like women, and that's another thing. Here's why I know that it's genetic, whether you're gay or whether you're straight. This is how I know. Absolutely, you can take this to the bank.
Uh-oh.
The day that I realized I like girls, if there was a real choice in the matter, it would have been a significant anniversary for me. I would have wrote that day down. There's no way you wake up one day and say, you know what? I think I like girls. That's just the way it is. And genetically, that's just the way it is, I would imagine, for the guys that are gay. It's not like they have an epiphany and say, you know, I think my idea of paradise is looking at a big hairy ass.
Oh my God! Let's
All right, let's get off this.
Let's go to Shelley.
I'm sorry.
Please, enough of Billy. Let's bring on Shelley Jensen, Emmy Award winning director, directed Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Friends, et al. He's everything I said at the beginning of the show. He's a terrific director. How are you, my friend?
I am good, sir, and you? How's everybody?
Good. There's my partner Billy O'Connor, my other partner Derek Harris.
Real pleasure to meet you, man. Really a pleasure.
Nice to meet you both.
Hello.
Paint or not?
So
I gotta tell the people about the paint.
why don't you tell the people about the paint, Shelley?
Well, as we started the interview, they said, can you move the camera a little bit? And I said, well, yeah. So I moved my iPad, and of course it was on 4 cans of paint in my master bedroom. And then the cans went over and dumped all over my master bedroom.
So
Right.
Derek's got a picture of that. We'll put it up. He doesn't have a picture now, but he'll have a picture of it in post. And
Yeah.
I wanted to paint the room anyway, so it's fine.
You know, Shelley, I got to tell you, when I was doing research for you, I told Frank, I says, I've never seen a guy smile so much. Every picture I saw of him, he's smiling. And now he knocks over a gallon of paint, and he's still smiling. And, I mean, you got to say,
well, let me ask you a question. Look at him. Look at him. Why wouldn't he be smiling? As handsome as he is?
he's always happy.
Well, he was directing comedies.
And lonely.
Well, we'll get it.
Hey, what a body of work. What a body of work. Unbelievable. I got title right.
So-
It's incredible.
So Shelley, before that, you know, we've known each other for maybe 20 years or so. I don't know where you grew up and where you went to school. Where'd you grow up and where'd you go to school?
I grew up in Northern California, Los Gatos. Wasn't born there. Was born in Wells, Nevada, which I was there for 10 days, which I believe has a population of about 250, and 200 of them are hookers, I think.
What town is that again?
Well, Wells, Nevada. My parents were on the way to San Jose in the Northern California area. And I grew up in Los Gatos and moved down here when I was 15.
Where'd you go to high school?
Went to 5 different high schools, Frank.
Couldn't.
Los Gatos, Saratoga. I went to Maryvale in Phoenix when my folks got divorced, which brought me down here. I went back to Saratoga and then down and graduated from Grant here in the Valley.
And then where'd you go to school? Where'd you go to college?
Pierce for a year and a half and then graduated from CSUN.
CSUN, Northridge.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
So now I've got the background. That's good.
Yeah, but at college, did you have an entertainment background? Is that what you were going to pursue when you were in college? Or do you have any idea you were going to be into entertainment?
My mother says that I knew what I wanted to be from the time I was 8 years old, that I wanted to be in showbiz. Don't ask me why.
Yeah.
But I came down here and got my first job as an audio animatronic guy in front of the Wax Museum on Hollywood Boulevard. Myself and 2 other guys. And we dress up, make up and hand out brochures. I'm doing this Mr. Robot
So
thing.
you were like a barker out on the street, step inside, that kind of thing?
Pretty much,
Wow.
pretty much. And a true Hollywood story, and this is dead true, we were, quote, discovered by an executive at the Universal tours. And he brought us up to Universal.
Who was that executive? Do you remember?
Oh boy, and I'm trying to remember, and I honestly, it's funny because I was thinking about that.
Because I would have been sending him Christmas cards every fucking year if it was me. I wouldn't have forgotten. That's
exactly right. I was up there. I was a toy soldier. I was the Easter Bunny. I was the Mummy, and I wound up being the Phantom of the Opera. It was like the key publicity figure up there, and that was going through 2 hours of makeup every day and latex and all this stuff to go stand in a 7-piece hot tuxedo and say hi to the tours as they got on the tour train.
Was it a different character every day, or did you go like run a week as
No,
the Mummy?
but I was the Mummy for a month, which was great because I only had to wear my skivvies underneath it. I didn't have to get hot or anything. It was great. I couldn't talk either. It was just where the Phantom, I didn't speak because I stood on a block of wood that said Lon Chaney, Phantom of the Opera, 1928, photos permitted, and would just hold a position, and people would think I was a dummy. And then I would break and scare the hell out of them. And so it was a novelty thing. And then I would take my fake hand out from under my cape and hand it to somebody and let it go. I had one guy who was great. It was a Japanese fellow, and I shook his hand after I'd broken, and I shook his hand. I let the hand go, and he starts doing this and freaking out. And he wound up going into a seizure of some kind of something. And I'm sitting there, trying to pull my latex mask off.
It's me. It's okay.
It's just me. I got blue eyes. But it turned out that he was in World War II, evidently, and in either Nagasaki or Hiroshima. And I guess body parts were falling off, and this was an older guy. They took him away.
Wow.
So how did you transition from that to be an associate director, or what was your next step?
Well, I went from there to after a stint in Europe that I did, not working, just playing. I came back and got a job at a company called VCI, Video Cassette Industries, and they owned the old Aldrich Studios. Frank, you may remember those, down in LA. It's still one of the oldest working stages in Hollywood, but it was a small videotape production house where 5 of us basically did every job. Shot camera, stage managed, edited, everything, sound, which was a great learning experience. And from there, it was a PBS show called Via Alegre, a bilingual children's television show, came in to shoot there, and I shot camera on it in the first season, and they lost their stage manager. And I went to them and said, I know the show, I know the actors, I know the lot, I can do the stage manager job. And they, like fools, gave it to me. And I, from there, just started freelancing and went to Disney from there to do the Mickey Mouse Club, I think it was. At the time, it was the remake of the Mickey Mouse Club, and they've done a lot of them since. That I was the associate director on, and that was pretty much it.
What made the leap to associate director? I mean, you were hands-on all the way. You had no formal training. You said, I know how to do this. I can do this. And you were OJT, on-the-job training all the way. Why assistant director? How was that leap?
Well, what's funny, Billy, is that I always took the attitude to say yes and ask for the job and then figure out how to do it afterwards. I mean, that happened. The very first sitcom I ever did as an associate director was Bosom Buddies. with Tom Hanks and
And
God rest his soul, Peter. Yeah. Scolari.
and God rest his soul, Chris Thompson.
And God rest his soul, Chris. So, yeah, and I worked a number of times with Chris after that. But
Yes,
as a director,
so did I. And I told a story in the book, If These Lips Could Talk, about the first time I met Chris, and then the time that Chris hired me to do Shake It Up. He went from looking like a golf pro to the second time I met him, he looked like, I don't want to say a bum, but
An unmade bed.
he looked like an unmade bed. And he
was a brilliant, brilliant writer.
Yep.
And he had his demons, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
It was too bad because I liked Chris and I thought his writing was exceptional. I thought Chris could have owned network TV.
Yes, Chris could have owned network TV. He was just on top of it. On top of it.
Now he worked with Hanks and Shelley on Bosom Buddies.
He created the show.
He created the show. He was the executive producer.
Yep.
Of the show.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it was funny, on that show, it was the line producer at the time was Don Van Adam. And was that right? I'm not certain about that fact. But anyway, they were very upset that I had been given the associate director job because they had not hired me. And rightfully so. The studio had hired me. And I went, well, I don't know what to tell you. And he said, well, we're going to bring another AD, which they did, and he's going to do the first episode, and then you'll rotate. And I said, okay. So I watched him do the first show, and I went,
I can do that.
I can do that. Exactly.
It's like a Steven Spielberg story. I work here. That's it. I'm here, and I'm just doing it. That's
But it was a
fantastic.
great lesson to learn. Say yes, and then figure it out.
Confidence.
Yeah. So when did you work on I know you worked on a Royal Family with Red Fox and Della Reese. How was that experience?
Yeah.
Because didn't Red Fox die on that show?
He
Literally die.
Literally. That story was, I was on the set with Della and with Red, and he was, I'm gonna move over to the chair on this line. And I went, yeah, fine, that's great. And he didn't get halfway to the chair, and boom,
Wow.
hit the floor. He was dead before he got to the floor. And I stepped over the body and said, I got to call my agent. This show's over.
Massive coronary. Is that what it?
Yeah, and Howard Storm was directing that, wasn't he?
I
I think he directed a bunch.
I don't remember it because I directed the pilot and was also producing it.
So you could have
But we were only in episode 7 when he dropped dead. And it was a massive hit on CBS.
I'll tell you my favorite Red Fox story. Billy, you may have heard this before, but he was in Vegas, and he was getting ready to do a show, and the announcer goes in front of a sparse crowd. He goes, and the band starts playing da 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 da. Dun, 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 dun. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my proud pleasure to present for your audience pleasure Mr. Red Fox. And he walks out of the stage. Dun, 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 dun. He looks out and there's 3 people. And he says to 3 people, and he goes, 3 people? I ain't doing no fucking show for 3 people. And he turns around and he walks out, and the band starts playing. Da, 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 Mr. Red Fox. That's
Unbelievable. So that was he had a hit, but obviously that was the end of that show. You were done right there. I mean,
well, that's how I segued from that. I mean, again, I was producing it, so I had a commitment to finish the post on the 7 we did. We also brought in, I believe it was Jack A to replace him. And it's like, well, you're not going to replace Red Fox.
Yeah.
Jack A. That isn't going to happen.
Was it a coronary, a massive coronary? Is that what happened when he just
massive?
Oh, wow.
He lived a hard life. He said he was 75, and I think he was probably closer to 83 or 4.
Yeah.
But I mean, he lived hard, and he died hard. Or easy, depending on how you look at it.
It sounds easy.
He died doing what he
Yeah,
loved.
yeah.
He died doing what he loved, right? He was on stage. boom,
Exactly
died.
right.
It was like Upton Bell's father, Bert Bell, was the commissioner of the NFL. He died in a football stadium.
Yeah.
So-
Died doing what he loved.
It's perfect.
Yeah, you can't get better than that.
So how did
So-
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air come about?
Well, it was after Red had died, and I was still in post trying to finish the episodes we'd shot. And Winifred Heard called and said, "I'm so sorry, Shelley, to hear about Red, blah, blah, blah. But would that make you available to come over and do this new show that we were doing? And they were in the first season, 3/4 of the way through the first season, and said to come direct a couple of episodes of Fresh Prince." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll
Fantastic.
be right there."
And that was already a hit. Now that
Well, it wasn't a hit because it was only midway through the first season.
well, that's a hit,
Right.
isn't it?
Well, no, it's midway through the first season. I have a lot of shows that are midway through the first season that you never heard of again because they sucked. But you
And yeah, they never made it to season 2.
yeah,
Right. Well,
or the back nine. But
Right,
if they were midway through the first season, they probably didn't even have a back nine yet, or they had just gotten the back nine. So you have to build to become a big hit series.
Now they wanted you to direct this show, not assistant direct. They wanted
No,
you to
he's
come in and
dir-
direct.
Oh no, I was directing.
directing and producing by then.
Well,
I was
okay.
directing and producing. I had made a decision shortly before that. Actually, it was right before Royal Family to only direct and not produce anymore. It was something I wanted to do. Gary Nardino. I'm backtracking a little bit.
Gary Dardino's nickname was the Fat Man. So continue. He was right.
Well, he was the last of the moguls.
Yep.
He was like a Hollywood mogul, and he ran Paramount and then became his own independent guy with Brothers, which
This is the guy who used to run the parties, right? He used to have the parties.
Yeah, Grant Rosenberg told us all about Gary
The
Nardino's parties.
Yeah,
That's
the
correct.
parties. Yeah.
he had great parties. But I was doing Webster and as an AD when Zwick and Joel Zwick.
Yeah, we know that, Joel.
Yeah. And Zwick and I went over to do the first 7 episodes or something of Brothers. And I went as the AD and Zwick was the director. And it was while the off season of Webster was happening, and it was great. I went back to Webster in its second season after that, and the phone rings, and it's Nardino saying, "Come over to administration right now. I'm deciding your life." I'm like, "Okay, what?" I go over there, and he and Rich Frank, remember Rich Frank?
Yep.
Who had replaced Nardino as the head of television at Paramount, were in Frank's office with Nardino, and I walk in and they said, "Look, we just got picked up on Brothers for 6 episodes and a Christmas hour, and we want you to line produce it." And I went, "Well, that's very generous, and I'm flattered, and thank you, and I'm not a producer, but okay, I can do that. If you give me 2 of the 6 to direct, because that's what I want to do, I'll be happy to come over and put Webster and go to work for you." Nardino gets up. Now he's, 400 pounds. "Why, you motherfucker! I made you a producer, and now you're holding me up for a director." Threw me out of the office. And I'm walking back to Webster shaking. I'm like, "Oh my God, what's going to happen? They're going to throw me off the lot." And he calls back and says, "I'm going to give you 1. And for some reason I said, "Gary, I appreciate it. Thank you. But I've got to have 2. I've got 22 episodes on Webster. I've got a family. I've got 2 kids. And why, you mother?" And that was Friday. I had the worst weekend of my life. I go back on Monday, not even knowing if they're going to let me on the lot. And I go to Webster, phone rings, it's Nardino, and he says, "Quick, Webster, come over here. You're going to work for me. I'm giving you 2. And I went to Bruce Johnson, Grant Johnson's dad, who was producing Webster at the time. And I told him, and he was all, very supportive and said, "You have to go." I went back to Nardino's office, and he says, "You want to know why I'm giving you 2 as a director and I'm making you a producer?" And I kind of went, "Why?" And he said, "Because you held out for what you wanted, and that's the kind of guy I need on my team."
How about that, huh?
And I didn't do it consciously. I was like going, no, I'm going to make this much money on Webster as an AD. And I mean, it wasn't like this big holdout thing. It was just one of those things. But it was funny because that's what made me go from associate director to director, because I wound up directing, I forget, 50 of those things that were picked up for 25 episodes or 50 episodes as it was at a time. And we wound up doing 120 of them or something like that.
Wow.
Thing of 5 years worth of programming. And I knew I'd never look back to ADing after that experience.
Now, it takes a lot of cubes to do that, right? Because you're leaving, Webster was a successful show, right? I mean, you're leaving a successful show and you're throwing a dice on the next one, right?
You're throwing a
Well,
dice.
and I was trying to explain that to Nardino. Exactly that. It's like, well, you got 7 episodes. If we go 7 and out, I'm going to be out of a job. So at least if I get 2 of them to direct and I produce the other.
Yeah, so you got lucky like I got on the original Head of the Class, because that was my first show, and
I didn't.
The original Head of the Class, yeah, that was my first sitcom, and had that got canceled after 13 episodes, I would have been out on my ass and not ever done Murphy Brown. So when I got picked up for the first year, then we got picked up for the second year, then we got picked up for 2 more years. That was the break that I needed, similarly to the break that you needed, because if Brothers had been canceled, you would have been out on your ass, and you had a 5-year run.
Exactly right. Exactly. And I had 5 years, and I knew that I was beyond going back to ADing after that. So it was, you're right. I mean, that's exactly it. It's that break that everybody needs.
Is this business, ask both of you, like a baseball player, you're only as good as your last at bat? I mean, if you have a failure, like you got a stench over you, or is there a cloud over you?
I would say yes to a point to that. Your whole background does matter, and it all depends on who they blame.
Yeah, and people are looking to blame more and more now than they did 20 years ago.
Yeah, you're right.
And,
you're right.
And directors are no longer have a point of view like they had 20 years ago or 40 years ago. They just come in, they want to, they're directing to get their next job, not so much to do the best job they can do on this show. They're directing to make sure they get a good review from the executive producer so they can get their next show.
So
exactly.
Do you guys believe, both of you, by saying that they're not so much punching a card to just get paid, but they're not willing to take chances because they're afraid they're going to screw up? Or you think that's bad? I mean, really bad, or what?
I think so.
What do you think, Frank?
I think so, especially on pilots. Because when you're shooting a pilot, you want a director's point of view. You want to say this character should do this. The story should go this way. This set's not right. Where can I put the cameras here? And if you don't have a director's point of view, you just got a writer's point of view, and a writer's point of view is sort of horseshit a lot of times.
Well, it's also the director's job to look at the script and visualize what the writer had in mind.
Right.
And then to bring that to the stage in the performance of the actors primarily, but also the look and as Frank says, the sets, the lighting. You got to have a point of view. And I think personally that point of view has gotten lost in the last 10 years or so.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So they all seem to like from your point of view, from professionals' point of view, it sort of looks like it's morphing together. There's nothing distinct about it. Is that fair to say?
Well, it's that coupled with the fact that the multi-camera sitcom, which was the king of television for,
starting with Desi Arnaz.
Yeah, exactly. And then Cosby brought it back years, earlier or after Desi. But if you looked at the primetime schedules, it was, primarily sitcom, multi-camera audience shows. And their not much in existence anymore. I mean, there's a half a dozen maybe, but
And Chuck Lorre produces 5 of them.
yeah, exactly right. That's yeah, if it weren't for Chuck, there wouldn't be any. So it's where it was at one point. I remember looking at the schedule and saying there were 55 half-hour shows on the schedule. Well, as a director at 55, I can go, well, I'll do X number of these, or X number of these, and X number of these, and you kind of got to pick and choose.
I remember one time there were 30 sitcoms on the air, and I was producing 2 of them. So
Wow.
Unbelievable.
That's a pretty good batting average.
that's a pretty good batting average. So let's get back to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So now you go over on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Did you know that Will Smith would have the acting chops that he had?
No.
That's exactly.
I had no clue, because Will, who is such a great guy, and the guy that he portrays is that man. I mean, he's a genuine guy, but he used to mouth the other actors' lines so that to get his own cue, and be like, no, you can't do that.
Wow.
You got a camera on you the whole time. If you're mouthing their lines, it doesn't make, my footage is no good. So, I mean, there were those things. But he had a natural comedic and a charm where he and Tom Hanks had a quality that very few actors that I work with, and I work with a lot of them,
Sure
had.
does.
And that was that they could tell you to go screw yourself with a smile on their face.
And you would
And
thank
you
them.
go, okay. I mean, it was an amazing thing. I mean, they just
Actually, Frank took the words out of my mouth. I was going to ask you the same thing. Like when you first started working with Will Smith, you started working with Tom Hanks. I mean, you worked with everybody. I mean, it's incredible. When you worked with Friends, did you know? I mean, did you see like this magnetism? Like you just knew that this guy was going further, or like there was no doubt about it. Like, did you get that sense?
I yes to that. But you know what? I look at those 6 seasons that I did on Fresh Prince, and we watched Will's career take off. He also did one of the greatest things ever, which was when we finished season 5, he took us, the cast and their significant others, and me and my wife, to Hawaii, first class, all expense paid. And the reason, besides thanking us all for the work, was to tell us that there was going to be a season 6, but not a season 7. So he basically gave us a year's notice, and you don't get that.
Class, just class.
You don't ever get that. And it was such a great thing to do.
Yeah, you talk about him being very generous. He's in this movie King Richard now about the Williams sisters, and he was paid $40 million to do that role, and
wow.
he was so generous with the cast and the crew. He gave them all. He wrote them all checks to thank them for their hard work. That's the
wow.
That's the kind of guy Will is.
Class act, just all the way.
Yep.
It is $2 a piece. I mean,
no, $2 a piece. They're the amount of residuals you're still getting on Brothers. Residual checks you're still getting on Brothers.
Z.
I got another question for you. Another hardball curveball with the 6 characters on Friends. Did you see anybody there that just jumped out like you just knew was going to go on to be a big star? I know Frank's got a dispersion for one of them. He's not too crazy about one of the guys on Friends as an actor. I mean, but did you see anybody that just jumped out?
Well, that's a good question. If I saw one, it would have been Jennifer Aniston.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that at the time, I really knew that was going to be the case. I mean, they were all good people. They were fun, and the smartest cast I've ever worked with.
Really?
To have come together and said, all for one, one for all, or we don't do it. And that served them very, very well. And they all went on to have movie careers. I mean, I'm trying to think of one who didn't.
No, they all did, including including the one I don't like.
Drop me a hint of who that is.
Swimmer.
Nice hint.
Yeah, but the six of them were almost like a union. They came one for all and all for one, right? They weren't going to negotiate unless you negotiated with them all at once, and so that did serve them well.
Absolutely, it did. That served them extremely well, all of them.
Let me ask you a question. Go back to Fresh Prince, and you can relate it to Bel-Air. How did you find the cast reacted to their growing fame? You know, we always say on the first year of a sitcom, they show up wearing driving beat up Toyotas and Volvos, and the second year they show up when they know they're a hit in, you know, Mercedes and Ferraris and everything else. How did both those casts respond?
Well, certainly, Fresh Prince, they kept that very to themselves and never showed Will in particular. I mean, we were going to all his movie premieres every season, and and it was like, wow. I mean, this guy's become a movie star, not a television star. Big difference. Real people. We travel together. I mean, we go off and play golf together back east or in some celebrity tournament or do something. We got together every Friday night. We'd get together and play cards after the show. We had a ball together. And I still talk with them. I just talked to Alfonso, who played Carlton, just a couple of weeks ago, and just, what's happening? How's it going? Karen Parsons, I still talk to a lot. They did not, from my point of view, show any, I'm going to show up in a new car. They're real people, down to earth, which is nice. Friends, I didn't know that cast as well as I knew Fresh Prince because I lived with Fresh Prince for 6 seasons. I do remember Matty LeBlanc showing up in a new car on the Friends lot one day, and Matthew Perry came out and went, and it was a Jag convertible. And we all came out and we're looking at the car, all going, oh, nice. And Matthew Perry goes, I wonder if they make that in Guy. And LeBlanc turned around and gave the car back the next day.
That's hilarious.
Good one-liner.
Let's get talking about Alfonso Ribeiro. Were you on? How did his character Carlton evolve, and how did that Carlton dance evolve?
Alf is so great. He's so funny. The guy's never been out of a job in his life. The Carlton, the white man dance.
The
white man dance. Yeah. It was an episode with Tom Jones, and Alf. I had made the choice to bring Tom. It was a dream of Alfonso's, of Carlton's, and because it was a dream, I went, okay, let's bring Tom Jones on his entrance through the French doors, but I put him on a sled, so underneath the camera, so I could see it.
Yeah.
And so the doors opened, and there was, fog machines coming through, and Tom Jones just came out singing, and Alfonso's dreaming this, and he just started dancing. It's not unusual to be loved. And that's how it started. I mean, it was great. And then, of course, it became his signature.
Wow.
And it still is a signature.
Yeah, totally.
Because Alfonso was a kid dancer. At 7 years old, he appeared in a Pepsi commercial with Michael Jackson.
That's when his hair caught on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was 7 years old, and he was dancing with Michael Jackson in this Pepsi commercial. So he was a professional dancer who became an actor. Then he became a director because he directed a couple of shows for me, and I don't even know what shows he directed. He directed Shake It Up, I think. He directed a couple of Shake It Ups. And then he was cast on Dancing with the Stars.
Well,
because they were, down to B-list celebrities. So Alfonso got on, and as a professional dancer, he won Dancing with the Stars, and then his career took over because he got the host of the video show, America's Funniest Video Shows, and he's been doing that for now 5 years. Yeah,
exactly.
But I found that he was an actor that knew cameras, and that was a funny thing to find because actors know acting, they don't know cameras. But with a guy like Shelley, who was so good with cameras, I mean, he was I want to say second only to Joel Zwick, who he learned from.
And that's who I basically learned from.
They were the best two with cameras that I've ever seen. So if you learn from cameras from Shelley, you
know what you're doing.
You learn from
the best.
Yeah.
Joel was a terrific guest. We had him on here. He was
we said hi. We said hi, Joel, and we said goodbye, Joel. Thank you. That was a great interview.
He ran.
And he just talked all the way through.
I think he was vaccinated with a photograph needle. He didn't stop. He just kept going. He was great.
I had lunch with him. I had lunch with him this week. It's always a joy to have lunch with Joel, for sure.
Joel's great. So Joel taught me that, and it goes back to what you were talking about, Frank, with cameras, that your staging dictates the shot.
Correct.
And it's absolute truth, where a lot of people don't, they stage for the proscenium, and sure, in the proscenium it looks fine, but if you're not staging through the eye of the camera from day one, you're making a mistake.
You got to make that more generic for us laymen. That you're staging for the camera, so you're setting up the stage for the camera. What is the other?
Well, by staging for the camera, Billy, what I'm referring to is because you're basically doing a play for the first 3 days of a 5-day schedule on a half-hour audience show. The writers come down and sit in chairs, and the producers and the network and everybody, and they watch the show like a play. You're on a stage. And so you're seeing all this stuff wide, you're seeing it like a play. But the camera's seeing it as a two-shot, as a close-up, and you can't stage two people who are talking on opposite sides of the stage, or you're forcing yourself to cut to that guy, cut to that guy, cut to that guy, to each line. You got to put them together so you can play it in a two-shot. Does that?
Yeah, it does. It makes a little bit more sense to me. Is it it's not the cameraman's choice, is it?
No,
it's not the
director's.
It's the director's choice. And in a 4-camera show, you've got two wing cameras, A and X, A and X, and they're carrying singles, and the middle cameras are primarily carrying masters or over.
Yeah, you got master or a 2-shot or a 3-shot, and then a single on the A and X on the wings, or an over, or whatever your choice is. But you have to stage it properly to be able to shoot it that way. And the trap that I think some directors anyway fall into is they stage for the proscenium, so during the run through it looks fine, but when you put it on camera, it doesn't work. So then you're restaging everything when you get to camera blocking day, and that's a nightmare.
It's like the directors on pilots a lot of times would come in with not a lot of experience, but they had big names, and they would say, I'm going to change the couch. So I'm going to have the couch, instead of facing forward, on the side, because that's where the couch would be. So the camera guys would come in on Thursdays and they would say, oh, well, that's interesting. How are we going to shoot that? And then they would go back to moving the couch in the same position that Desi had it in 1955. There was a reason he put it there.
That's where it
exactly right.
And that's
exactly right.
And the front door is the same thing, right? The front door is always on the side?
It's always on the side.
Because just like entering a stage.
Yep.
Same thing.
Exactly correct.
Oh, okay.
Exactly right.
Exactly.
So, and I've done too many pilots where somebody said, production side, let's put the door upstage.
Yeah.
The front door.
The only time I've ever seen that work was Murphy Brown. With the elevator was upstage, and Candace always made her entrance from the upstage. And I tried to get Diane to change it when we did the redo. I said, well, why do we want this? Why do we want Candace's entrance to be upstage, and because she said because the audience is used to having Candace enter from upstage elevator, so the elevator will be upstage. I said no argument from me.
The honeymooners, didn't the honeymooners always have the door in the middle too? I mean, that came center
Yeah,
stage.
but it was
It's like a shoebox.
It was so shallow
Yeah.
that it might have well been upstage in the honeymooners. So
But it's also, when you bring somebody in from upstage, you got to bring them downstage immediately.
yes,
In order.
So there was no depth to that set.
yes, there was no depth to that
It was
set.
like a shoebox.
You walked in, you took 2 steps, and you were at the kitchen table.
Right. And that was it. That was the end of it.
And
The kitchen table was the end of it.
That
There was
was
nothing
it.
else.
Yeah, there was a sink, camera right,
The little refrigerator.
and a little refrigerator, and
The other door
and the
right
other-
into the bedroom that you never saw.
you never saw.
Yeah.
And that the honeymooners brings up a great notion to me, because when the honeymooners were written, the honeymoon were always about story and character, story and character, story and character, story and character, and the shows always worked.
Mhm.
Now you get a bit, and they try to build the stories around a bit. There's no story, there's no character, and that's why a lot of these sitcoms fail, in my estimation. Do you agree, Shell?
I agree completely. It's all about character. I mean, you have to have the characters. You have to have somebody to root for as an audience, and it's so about the writing and how the characters relate to each other. It's the camera thing is important, but not if the story doesn't work or if the characters don't work. And that has to be there, or I don't care what your cameras are, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You got to have the other.
Even with writing, I mean, the character, your protagonist, your antagonist, you can hate him, you can love him, you can do whatever you want, but you got to care. You got to care about the characters. If you don't care about the characters, I mean, even I see actors that don't sell it to me, and I see an actor and say, I don't really care about this guy. I'm not going to watch this thing. I'm done. I'm done. I don't care.
And it's also difficult because if you're not a hit show out of the gate, you don't have the opportunity to develop the characters.
Right.
You're gone. So it's like,
Again, when I was at lunch with Joel, we walked into Arts Deli, and Billy Daniels was there, and his wife, I forget his wife's name, William Daniels, who played the doctor, the chief of surgery at St. Elsewhere in St. Eligius, and he also played John Adams in 1776. And I was thinking of St. Elsewhere because St. Elsewhere and Cheers were the 2 lowest rated shows at NBC, and they were given a second season. They would be canceled after 4 episodes. Seinfeld was given 4 episodes the first year, 6 episodes the second year before they got a third year. And they would be gone instantaneously.
What do you attribute that to? Is that because somebody saw something in it and just tried to push it? I mean, how'd they get away
They
with
were
it?
more well, Brandon Tartikoff saw something. And all 3 of those shows were NBC shows. And Brandon Tartikoff, who was a genius, who passed away way, way, way too early, saw something in the shows. And he had the luxury of only 3 networks.
well, I was going to say the same.
That was the luxury that he had, that he didn't have to have an instantaneous hit.
And today, the audience is so divided and split up because there's 2,000 channels out there, makes it much more difficult. And then, of course, when I was doing Bosom Buddies, it was canceled with a 27 share. Today, that's Super Bowl number.
A superstar, yeah.
I mean, that's a mega hit, 27 share. That doesn't happen anymore.
That's because of the
Today,
clamor.
what's a
There's so many
good number?
people,
1.4?
so many people clamoring for your attention. There's so many different outlets. There's an HBO. There's this. There's that. There's this. That's because of that. Right? It's just diluted. It's diluted.
Well, there's no more broadcast networks. I mean, all the networks are narrowcasting now. The Paint Channel, the food channel.
Yeah, right. Specifics.
You know,
I never heard
the pet channel. Yeah,
I never heard that term. What is it?
he said the paint channel's on his floor, and it's dried.
He's gonna run the 24/7 too. I think
It's gonna get a good run.
Yes, I never heard that narrowcasting. I never heard that term, broadcasting and then
Narrowcasting.
narrowcasting. Yeah, so it's specific.
Yeah.
It's specific audience.
So, Shelley, after what do you recall the first show we worked on together?
Suddenly Susan, I think.
Was it the first show?
I believe it was. I knew your reputation, but I think the first thing we ever did was Suddenly Susan, which I did 3 years, I believe it was. It was when Steve Peterman and Donzig were the showrunners.
Yeah, so 2.5 for sure.
Well,
Three
Yeah,
seasons.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I just can't let that pass. So you knew his reputation.
Oh, yeah.
Do tell, please, please, please.
I'm going to lean in for this. I'll answer that question.
Honestly,
No, Derek, I'll be very, very honest with you. Asshole.
That's what I
Look
thought.
out for Frank Pace. You want him as a friend, not as an enemy. My favorite though story was when we did the pilot at Disney together with Billy and Jane.
Billy Van Zandt, and Jane Milmore.
I miss her every day. But it was Frank came in and was going to produce the show.
Jack and Janet Save the Planet.
Right.
That was
exactly.
that was the name of the show. And by then, we'll get a little more to Jane. I had directed 3 or 4 shows for Billy and Jane, and they were all great experience. Billy Van Zandt and Jane Milmore. And by then, I found out that Shelley was sweet on Jane. So, did you meet Jane on Jack and Janet, or had you been backdooring
No,
me for
we
a
had
while?
actually did the Wayans brothers.
Had you been backdooring me for a while?
We had a torrid affair during the pilot, though, and nobody knew about it.
Right.
And then I came to you, Frank, after I think we were in post-production or had just delivered or something, and said, "Hey, Frank, I want you to know that Jane and I are seeing each other, just so you know, you don't hear it on the street." And it was felt like 15 minutes to me as you looked at me and didn't answer. You just stared at me. And I thought, oh, what's he thinking? And it was like you were thinking, what did I say about the other to each other? and then you answered, and then you said, well, you're adults.
Nice.
It was hysterical.
That's funny stuff.
So you were telling a Jack and Janet story?
Well, the Jack and Janet story was that Billy and Jane came to me and said, "Well, you know, Frank's producing the show, and you know, he gets it done, but he can be tough." And you took somebody out of the set at some point and just let him have it. And Billy's comment was, "I think the gentler, kinder Frank just left the building."
So you got a pretty long fuse, but once it goes, it goes. That's it, huh?
Well,
Yeah.
I've gotten a longer fuse over the years.
Shit.
I had a short.
Derek says bullshit.
I had a shorter fuse when I was younger, and then I found out I didn't. Then I found out that I didn't have to blow my fuse because everybody was so afraid that I might blow my fuse that I didn't have to blow my fuse. I remember when Jack and Janet was 2009, I believe.
Yeah.
2009.
Yeah.
So Shelley had, by the way, not only a torrid love affair with Jane on the set, but he had a lifelong relationship with Jane until she passed in 2021. I think she passed last year. 2020.
Sorry.
February 20.
And I'm going to ask you to send me a picture of you with Jane. So Derek.
I will.
Derek can put it up in post. But they had a tremendous love affair, and they found each other later in life. And I'm happy. I was happy for both of them, and Jane was a great loss.
She was a brilliant, brilliant writer and just the love of my life. And to have found her on that set and just in working with her. And again, I had worked with her 10 years prior on the Wayans Brothers. And then what was the show that Halford produced? Bless This House.
Well, Bless This House came before Suddenly Susan.
Oh, well, then I'm wrong. Then it was Bless This House was our first project.
Yep.
And if I recall correctly, when we wrote Lips, Bless This House was sort of a take on the Honeymooners.
It was a take on the Honeymooners, and it actually should have been the Honeymooners, and it should have been what the hell was that show with Kevin James?
The Postman thing.
Yes,
Queens, King of Queens. Yeah, that was another one that was based on Honeymooners.
But I think King of Queens was based on Bless This House, because Les Moonves, who was had been the president of Warner Brothers, became the president of CBS. He greenlighted Bless This House, and Bless This House was about to be a mega hit, and then Dice self-destructed. And when Dice self-destructed, Les said, "I got to continue with the show because the show is too good a show.
Because the formula is perfect,
The
right?
formula is poor, downtrodden,
Best friend upstairs.
He works at a post office. Wife is the stronger part of the two of them. So he then greenlit King of Queens, and then it ran for 8 years, and Kevin James.
Let me ask you both the question about that, because that really fascinates me. When you look at the Honeymooners, and this is from a guy who liked Laurel and Hardy, always watched, comedies all my life. It's always the guy, like, one guy is obviously the idiot, right? I mean, you got Stanley Laurel, he's the idiot. But the guy who's supposed to be the smart guy is just as dumb as the idiot.
Is dumber than the idiot.
No, dumber than the idiot.
Dumber than.
Yeah, dumber than. Yeah, I mean, so like Oliver and like that Stanley and Norton with Crampton. And Crampton's the genius, but of course, Crampton's dumber than Norton. So, I mean, was that the same thing on with King of Queens or?
I imagine so. I'm sure that Kathy Moriarty, as Dice's wife, was bailing Dice out of innumerable
she was
everything he got himself into. Like Alice Cramner was.
She was the more dominant in the relationship.
Yeah. I'm sure Leah Remini played the same role in King of Queens.
Right. Yeah, I'm just curious about that, because that always strikes me as like it's one of the cornerstones of comedy when it's a duo, like both of them got to be dumb.
I remember on Bless This House doing a scene with Dice Clay, and I don't remember what the scene was, but we had done a take. The producers huddled about their notes, and Jane came out, and this is before I was senior or anything else, and gave Andrew a note, gave me a note about something, and told Andrew just to be funnier or something like that, a general note, and turned and walked away, and Dice said, "You got a great ass." And it stopped Jane cold. And he turned around, came back to Andrew and said, "You can't talk to me like that. That is not acceptable, and I never, ever want to hear you do that again." And I'm just, a spitfire. She turns and walks away again, and he goes, "Well, I'm not the only person who thinks that. Shelley Jensen thinks it too." Little did I know that I would wind up being with the woman for 10 years.
You thank Dice for planting that seed.
Yeah, exactly right. I do, as Andrew, I thank you now.
So, and then I think the last time we worked together was on Shake It Up, which the show followed Jack and Janet Save the Planet. And you got to see another budding talent in Zendaya. What were your impressions of Zendaya? And also, what were your impressions of Zendaya?
I remember the first meeting with Chris Thompson.
Right, Chris Thompson again created Shake It Up.
Created it. and I had been hired to direct. They'd already cast the girls, and Bella Thorne, who was the other one, we were in a conference room with Zendaya, Chris and I, just the four of us, and the girls were bouncing off the walls. Just, we're casting this thing, And I looked at Thompson and I went, what? What are we doing? And he just laughed and said, yep, that's it. It's crazy. Bella was the dancer. No, excuse me. Zendaya, dancer, not the actor. Bella was more the actor, couldn't dance to save her life. And it flipped. Zendaya became the actor, and now we all know what kind of an actress she is. She's a great actor, and also a great dancer on top of it. That was the true talent, and that was it was pretty special.
And Billy will like this. We did the pilot on the same stage where Jolson did the first talkie.
Wow.
At Hollywood Center Studio. So there's a bit of trivia. Derek, Jolson was before Lil Nas X.
Oh, great. Thank you for that. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll have to Google that.
The jazz singer. That goes back a bit, but that's okay.
Yeah, not the Nas singer.
I tell you what,
not the Nas singer, the jazz singer.
Being from the Bronx, I remember a line in the jazz singer where he's playing the piano. He says, Mom, I'm going to get you a nice house up in the suburbs, up in the Bronx. Would you like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, the suburbs in the Bronx.
So, Shelley, before we close this fascinating interview, we're going to start something new on a Mick, a Mook, and a Mike. We're going to ask you some questions to find out more about Shelley Jensen. Okay.
Okay.
So, what are you reading now?
How to clean up paint.
Immediately. Google it immediately.
What am I reading? My television. I'm currently not reading anything other than the script that I'm writing, that I've been writing with my partner Richard Andrews, called The Only Child.
And what's it about?
Yeah.
It is actually a sci-fi drama, and it is the first completely genetically created child, and the people that are after him, and how he can change the world.
Sounds fascinating.
That is sounds fascinating. It's terrific.
So when we talk about movies, let me ask you, what's your favorite movie? Well, let me stop that. I'm going to say, if you were about to die and could see one movie before you go, what movie would that be?
What movie would that be? Oh, I'm sorry, there's paint all over. Movie that before I die. Boy, I don't know. And I'm a movie buff. Okay,
what's your favorite movie?
Now that's a hard question. This is going to be strange, but either Love Actually.
Wow.
Or possibly Shakespeare in Love. I'm a romantic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, you guys don't know anything about
fair
that.
enough. Shakespeare in Love is a fair play. Love Actually, I got to check that one out myself. I don't remember that one.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
What's your favorite song?
Louie Louie. No.
My
favorite song. Love Actually. But music is interesting because I'm dating somebody today that's country western, and I've never been into country western before, and yet I'm now all of a sudden appreciating it in a whole different light. Sometimes gets a little twangy for me because I'm a rock and roll guy, but I'm appreciating that. I kind of appreciate all music. I play music. I play guitar and piano, and have for years. And I just have an appreciation for all music.
I'll steal this from another person. I can't remember his name. What's your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
It's a great word. Great adjective, great verb, lucky man's verb.
It works for everything. Fuck works for everything.
Lazy man's adjective, lucky man's verb. I'm big Great word.
I'd be interested to know what your other guests think about this. What's a favorite word?
How do you?
Fuck's a great word.
You got 2 offspring in the business. How would you like to be remembered?
How would I like? Ask me that again.
How you have 2 offspring in the business? How would you like to be remembered?
As a real guy, not caught up in the Hollywood bullshit, but as a father, I'm more named.
Right.
Well, you described Will Smith as that. That's a pretty nice compliment, man, that he's a real guy. Like he's the real thing. What you see is what you get. There's no bullshit there. There's no... And that's rare in Hollywood, ain't it? I mean, isn't that rare? Rare, correct me. I don't know. You guys know.
Yeah, it's rare in Hollywood. It's not like... At least I realize, and I think Shelley realizes, we're not putting our lives on the line for people to run into a flaming building like Billy did for 20 years, or we're not putting our lives on the line to go on at 9/11 as a first responder like Billy did. We're doing stuff that we get paid really, really well for, and doesn't really hurt anybody. I know I'm the luckiest guy in the world next to Shelley because Shelley's got residual checks, living off residual checks.
I got tired of writing. I swear to God, this guy never stops working. No wonder he's smiling all the time. He never stops working. He's everywhere.
Yeah,
exactly.
Amazing.
So, Derek, do you have any last questions for Shelley? I know you got your question is what was Frank like? So I know you got that in.
Well, we got that one in. Thank you.
Prick. What? Prick.
I want to first commend you for being the first guest that was honest.
Well, we'll never be on the air, but that's fine.
Billy mentioned something about you being you having constantly smiling, and is that real? Like, are you having fun all the time? Because it seems like you are.
I am. To me, again, I'm like Frank. I feel very fortunate to have had the career I've had. We're doing comedy, and comedy's funny. It's supposed to be funny, and sometimes it's taken so seriously, and it's not life or death, as Billy said. We're doing television. The difference is, for me, is that millions of people see the work, but don't buy into the press of that it's important, because it really isn't. And you kind of have to look at it that way, I think. And
yes, but I have to tell you, Shelley, you have a naturally smiling face. I have a resting bitch face. So as a person who has a resting bitch face, I'm going to look sour even when I'm not sour.
You are now going to be remembered as resting bitch face.
On the note, about every picture I ever saw Shelley in when I was Googling him, big smile. One of the pictures he's with a guy, and now I'm going to ask you, I got to call you on this because it cracked me up. One of the guy's names was Joey Cappuccino. Is that on the level? Like Joey Bag of Donuts or something? What is Joey Cappuccino? Is that on the level?
Yeah, Cappuccino's his last name. I still know him. He's a great guy. Wow. That's very funny. He dated my daughter.
Really?
Dated my daughter, and I produced the band that he was in.
That's fantastic.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it cost me about $100,000, and then they broke up.
Oh, Joey Cappuccino, prick.
Sucker. Sucker.
Yes, Cappuccino.
That's fantastic.
Any final questions, Billy?
Yeah, I got one more question. So being that you are happy all the time and you like to have fun, and you have offsprings, I'd be curious to know if you've imparted any kind of life philosophies for them, like not only for being successful but also being happy.
That's not a very good question. To be happy, find your passion. If you can find what you're passionate about, money will come. You don't have to worry about money. I think that so many people in the world work day to day to make a check, to put food on the table, to live a life, whatever caliber that is. But if you can find your passion, and I've always tried to teach my children this, and it's something that you really care about, you're good.
You're not
That's
working.
kind of-
You're not
I've tried to
working.
You're not working. You get
That's
up
great
you get up
advice.
every morning looking forward to go to work.
You're not working.
Exactly right. And that I feel so fortunate because I had the greatest job in the world. I mean, I loved going to work.
You know, I got to ask you on that note because you're so diverse. I mean, I'm looking at the things you directed, and I mean, it's just so diverse from the Muppets to Shakespeare to the situation comedies. I mean, it's amazing. Now, were you diverse deliberately, or was that like just the way the dice tumbled, or were you just trying to survive?
Really, I think
you're just trying to
it was
survive.
more the way it happened. It laid out that way. I was in theater. I wanted to act when I first, when I was younger, and then realized I was much better at looking at the whole picture, where acting is one-on-one. You're right here. Why I would go back and do plays for Shakespeare? Because I thoroughly loved it. I mean, I remember doing Romeo and Juliet on stage in Florida, big theater. And it was such a joy to be on the stage and directing a cast in a story that works. Almost every other story is Romeo and Juliet in some form or another. And it's the fact that the guy's work holds up 550 years later is truly amazing. And I was able to afford to be able to go out and do those kinds of things. Yes, it was a choice, but it also just is kind of the way the cookie crumbled.
The dice just tumbled that way, and you just went with it.
And we went with it.
It's interesting that Romeo and Juliet, and of course, boy meets
Well,
girl,
if
boy
I
loses
just-
girl, boy gets girl. That's the start of every show. But when Leonard Bernstein did West Side Story, of course, that's Romeo and Juliet. And you were talking
Exactly.
about diversity in music, and Bernstein said, which I think is a great quote, that there's only two kinds of music: there's good and there's bad, and that's it. If it's good, it's good.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah,
Yeah, if
that's
it's good,
right.
it's good. I
Exactly
mean,
right.
Western, country and Western. If it's good, it's good. Rap,
Yeah.
if it's good, it's good.
Well, Shelley,
Yeah.
you've been a great guest.
Tremendous guest.
And
Man. A pleasure to meet you.
And I want to get you this handsome parting gift for your next task.
I'm not over right away. I'm going to need
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Cleaning up all that paint. Thanks, Shelley. You've been a great guest.
Thank you so
doing that
much.
the rest of the day. I have to my floor.
Take care, pal.
Pleasure to meet you, pal.
Great.
Really,
Thank you,
thank you
guys.
for coming on.
Good luck with
Great
the
guest.
show.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here. All righty. Bye-bye.
Ah, boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Hilarious.
Hilarious.
Oh, you're right. He's always smiling. I mean, he's always smiling. And, man, if I spilled a gallon of paint on my floor,
I would have said, "Fuck you guys."
I gotta go.
I got-
Give me a shovel. I gotta get this shit up. I mean, he was like laughing, like, all right. So look, I love
And-
it. Let me take a picture of it.
Yeah, and he took that picture. Derek, show the picture again because I know
Amazing.
you don't have it, but put it up
Nothing
in
can piss this
plus.
guy off.
But his floor was a dark floor, and the
That was
paint, well, blue, gray, who knows? Well, with our colorblind, but it was certainly a contrasting color, that's for sure.
I mean, if that doesn't piss you off, it's only a gallon of paint on your floor.
Well-
What's going to piss this guy off? Nothing. It's
Oh.
amazing.
Can you imagine if Frank spilled that paint?
Oh, Jesus
I would
Christ!
have been pissed, and I don't get pissed. Oh,
That
Jesus.
would have been a mess.
So again, we've got another show without promoting our books.
Yeah, Christmas is coming up.
Christmas is coming
And
up.
give the gift of reading, by all means.
Give the gift of reading, whether it be a football story, Lamar's Gamble, a fireman story, Combustible,
Or a story about
a Mook story about
about a bitter producer.
a Mick, a Mook, and a Mike. You can find them all on our website.
Yes, on our website. And
a
they're
Mick,
all
a Mook,
well reviewed. And
a Mick, a Mook, and a Mike.com /books /
you can't go wrong giving books for Christmas. Great stocking stuffers. And come on, man. If you don't read, you might as well be illiterate.
Come on, man.
Read.
Come on, man.
Come on, buy the book, man. Come on.
Come on, man.
I
Buy
gotta
the
pay the
book.
rent.
By the way.
By the way, I gotta pay the rent. My bookie needs some money.
Oh boy! Well, that was a great show, and I hope the audience enjoyed it.
Yeah,
And I hope you will come back next week.
yes, please do. And thanks for tuning in.
Yep.
You guys are just the best. We appreciate it.
And-
Keep us up at the top of that 2 million.
Keep us up in the top of 200,000. All right,
brother.
be well.
Take care.
Good night, Derek.
Good night, Derek.
Good night, fellas.
Next week's guest, former president of the National Baseball Hall of Fame and founder of Grassroots Baseball, Jeff Idelson.
We'll see you next week.